Morning with Miss Kelly Crandall. So Miss Kelly Crandall, good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
You are most welcome. Thank you for being here with us. So a little bit about Kelly. So Kelly is actually the president of Next Level Strategy. She has a background and a resume that is incredibly impressive and just years and years of experience in sales process, sales training, development, management. So there isn't a whole lot out there that she hasn't seen, hasn't touched, and hasn't contributed to. So we are just so excited to be able to dive into some questions, get some wisdom, get some insight from you as we all continue to navigate these treacherous waters that we're in, right? I mean, these are some unprecedented times. So any and all guidance we can get from credible, reputable sources just like you and professionals in this field, it is most appreciated. As mentioned earlier, ladies and gentlemen, we did mute your microphones as well as your video, just so we could facilitate the conversation and get you as much exposure to Kelly's knowledge as possible. So if you have any questions at any time, we welcome you to email Kelly directly, right? And she'll be happy to manage those questions and handle it. So if you look in the message and chat box, you will see her name, her title, and her email address. So by all means, refer to it, copy paste it. If you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to us at CEOE, and we're happy to connect you with Kelly. So Kelly, without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. We've got some good stuff that we want to get your insight on this morning. So, Kelly, in these unprecedented times, how can a business attempt to capitalize and grow sales, especially with all the fluctuation and everything that's going on? How can a business do that?
Right. Well, it's challenging times for sure, and some more than others. So the first piece of advice I would have is we've got to build a bridge to our customers and really move our team's mindset. Right now, they're thinking, when can I sell again? Right. And what we really want them thinking is, how do I sell now? Right. If you're still open, obviously. So as far as the old sales processes go, they're kind of dead for the most part, and they're just not going to work the same. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage all the CEOs to accept, they know the world's changed, and the faster we kind of let the old way go from a sales perspective, the old processes, the faster you can adjust to this, new way of doing business. So the more successful you're going to be. So that means, communicating in new ways with our customers. So, where do you start with that? My recommendation is to get your team together and really try to understand the voice of your customer right now. So that means figuring out what's going on right now with your customers. What are they worried about? And I'm not talking about, what we offer at this point, right? This is just let's just get a temperature check and leave our products and services outside the door for just a minute and find out what our top issues from our customers are from our salespeople. So we want to, we want them to go out and make those calls and then come back to us. And, it could be things like people are worried about keeping their revenue going. In some cases, that's not a problem, but keeping customers engaged. Maybe they're worried about their brand.
Sure.
Maybe they're worried about themselves financially or emotionally. We can't guess at that. So we want to go out and find out. And then we want to bring the team together based on that feedback and really brainstorm on how can we help them. And again, kind of leave your product out the door in the beginning of this discussion. Let's do that green light thinking where there is no bad answer. Don't worry if you can do it or not, but let's just get all the ideas out and then find out what's out of all these ideas. What can we do that's reasonable? What can we do that's quick? And what can we make money on? Absolutely. And so that's kind of your new starting point. Now you can kind of invite the product back in and figure out, what do we do next? And a lot of CEOs, are focused on numbers, and we know numbers isn't just selling and money and statistics, right? We've got to find out how our product can make a contribution and connect people to our product and service and satisfy that need. And, we all know that, but that's like the new state of sales. How can we make a sale today? And I don't want CEOs ever to say, we have to hit our numbers, right? We're quarter slipping away. I mean, that's just going to stress everybody out. What I want CEOs saying to their teams is, how will our customers be better or different because they're doing business with us? How can we help our customers today? That's the mindset piece. This is a mindset game, a lot of it, in being successful. So we want to, focus on driving revenue that makes us proud and really focus on helping people to make that next sales call.
You know, what is so profound, I mean, there's so much value in what you just said, but, you know, I know for us here at CEO Effectiveness, one of the things that we really harp on with our clients across the board, across the country, is adaptability, being able to adapt, being able to change, right, to those pivots, right, real time, right, and not, feel an immense amount of stress, but being able to do it with fluidity, right, and there's a lot there, and you definitely touched on the key word was framing. How are you mentally preparing yourself for that pivot? What have you done up to that point to condition yourself for that process in order to be adaptable? So that's incredibly helpful and insightful. So on that line, right, you know, right now, so many folks have switched to a remote business environment, right? And it's for some folks, it's new. For some folks, it's old guard. They've been doing it for years. But in your opinion, what's the most effective way to manage your sales force?
Right now, if you haven't already done so, there's, kind of two pieces of technology that you got to be using. One is this virtual, meeting capabilities so that you can meet with your team and do demos of your product and call on customers, right? So that's obviously, I think everybody is doing that now, at least I hope so. The other one is an online customer relationship management system, also called an online CRM. And that's going to give you visibility into what's happening with your pipeline and the sales activities of your team, and just be able to in real time see all that information.
So it's really interesting what you say about a CRM, because I know so many folks, they don't have a CRM. Some folks, the CRM is like the pillar, right, that their business thrives off of for transparency, for processes. So what do you recommend if folks don't have a CRM?
If you don't have one, now's a great time to get
to get one, right?
CRMs. Now, there's a lot out there. So if you're unsure where to start, please just reach out to me, and we can have a very quick conversation, and I'll just kind of ask a few questions to get you there. But most of them you can implement on your own, which is great. If you're stretched for time or you're nervous about it, just get somebody like me to help you. It's very easy to get it set up and get the team trained. But you want to have it because everybody gets access to that same information in real time. So you're able to kind of just see across the entire customer and prospect database what's happening. So a CRM captures, if you're not familiar with it, it works with your Outlook or your Gmail. So it easily tracks all the emails, all the quotes, the pipeline, just the last time we called or touched somebody, can take notes, all those good things. So you get real visibility into a pipeline and what quotes are being generated and what deals are closing. So you don't have to ask that question and waste time with your team. You can just go into the system and see it. And so for salespeople, this is where, if they're really good at their job, they're going to embrace a CRM and use it to schedule follow-up. There's no way, if you're dealing with, tons of quotes or opportunities, that you can keep track of that stuff. No way. So you use technology to, remind you and help you do that. And that's going to be really great. And then for salespeople, for business owners, it's really going to help you if you ever have turnover. Because if somebody leaves the team, expected or unexpected, right? Sometimes that happens. You can very easily, with a click of a button, reassign, an entire territory, portfolio, database, deals, whatever. And then that next salesperson can just see what's the last thing that happened with this customer. What was the last conversation? And so it's going to help you, not miss a beat if something unexpected or planned happens with your team. So we want to, really encourage folks to use one. And it's common for me. A lot of companies don't have them. A lot of companies have grown without them. But inevitably, they all get to the point where they want to forecast revenue better, more efficiently. And especially in times like these, if you don't have that visibility, you're probably not getting as good a sleep as you would like to.
It's amazing. When I think of 8-9 years ago, when I was a business owner myself, pre-CRM, it was rough. It's a lot to juggle, building pipeline, being able to have the transparency, being able to assign tasks, do email marketing campaigns. And it's a one-stop shop. And the great thing about it, to your point, there are so many options nowadays, so many options for CRMs. So I think it's a pivotal thing that you mentioned there. So
more affordable too. Like, you don't have to do Salesforce and pay for it. Out there. There's some free ones too. So
yes, my indoctrination was with Infusionsoft, and It was not a cheap investment. Let me just tell you, that's for sure. But it did work very, very well. So you mentioned weekly sales meetings, right? I think this is really important because so many of us have touch points throughout the week with our team members, but a devoted, dedicated weekly sales meeting. Why is it important? And in your opinion, what should they look like?
Well, it's definitely a best practice. It's also something I find many companies don't do, but we really need to do it to have clear expectations, especially when times are changing so rapidly now. But even if this wasn't happening, you just need to do it. They need to be consistent and productive. So, the first of all, you got to have them, right? And second, you got to have an agenda, because we don't pull everybody together. We want people to come prepared with the deliverables. We want them to know what to expect. And so I recommend having them once a week for an hour. And if you want some tips on an agenda, I'm happy to, kind of share that as well.
No, that would be absolutely fantastic. I know so many of us out there, we think we have a good bearing on it, but we also don't have the tenure and experience you do. So if you'd be willing to share it, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so there's a couple, key things you want to have. Now, first of all, if you're using an EOS system, I'm a huge fan of level 10 meetings. But if you don't, we sort of follow a little bit of that format. But so the first piece is just that check-in and positive news, right? We want to check in on our team, tell us something good that happened last week, personally and business. Personally, we want to know what's going on with you, right? If you're the manager and you don't know they're, getting engaged or,
Yeah.
vacation. So good news. We always start off the meeting that way. Then we kind of want to just get into headlines, like talk about what's happening with the clients. So we talked about that earlier, right? What are customers saying? Let's keep the conversation focused on the customer's world. So we're just in tune with headlines for the week. We always want to have a little bit of training in the meeting, something quick. You can rotate this through the team, so the burden is not on you, right? Like just assign it every week. Somebody has to bring something to the team to share, best practice, a helpful tip. And then we get into the scorecard. We don't start with the scorecard, right? Because everybody the numbers. But
we got to build our way up to it.
We do all this good stuff first, and then we say, okay, what are our numbers? What's our pipeline? How many deals are we closing? Whatever your KPIs are, deals quoted, demos done, calls made. And so we got to spend some time and see where we're on track or off track. And if we're off track, we need to have a conversation as a team about that. You need to talk about the issues. So we really want a chunk of this meeting, and this again comes from EOS, talking about identifying, discussing, and solving issues as a team. So we put it out there, we brainstorm pros and cons, and we come up with a solution, because we don't want to keep talking about the same issues over and over again. We want to come up with a solution and implement it. And then we always end the meeting with, some type of reward and recognition, a call out, an attaboy, something that somebody did great that week. We can close with a story, that you can rotate these things, so you're not having to do a lot of the work. But it's a good meeting, right? Would you be excited to be a part of that, right? And feel productive? I'm
ready right now. Let's do this. No, I think it's so important. There's so many facets to that. And I think one that really sticks, I know for us here at CEOE, when we kick off our development meetings, internally, we do a highs and a lows, right? So like, what is one high, one thing you're really proud of that really just kind of stuck out to you that week? And then we also share the low. What's one thing that you feel you could have done better? One thing you could go back. I think those are so important, and it opens the door for such incredible discussion as a team. And to your point, to get to know one another, not just professionally, but personally, and then work into so many of the other facets when it comes to training and development, when it comes to the numbers, and then ending with positivity. I think that is so important. So from a culture perspective. All right, so that's great. So especially right now, in your opinion, what's the best way to deal with a revolving door of salespeople, right? With what we're seeing right now and the volatility and the fluctuation, what are kind of some guiding principles there?
Wow, that one. If you've owned a business and had salespeople, you've experienced this.
Oh, absolutely.
Can't escape it. But now's the time to really assess the team. So in these times, there's no room for C players anymore, right? So don't be worried if they're leaving or if you have to let them go. We've got to really get the A talent in the seats right now. But if turnover's been a problem in the past, you probably need to assess your hiring practices and ensure you've got a good, solid onboarding plan. I see a lot of companies hire salespeople and think, I'm paying a lot of money for you, so go figure it out. It's a sink or swim approach. That's going to create a revolving door of salespeople. The other thing that's going to cause that is if you don't have proper sales management.
Mhm.
Or the proper sales infrastructure, things like a CRM to support that salesperson. So if you really want to grow and scale, have a good onboarding plan for training and development, have regular sales meetings, including quarterly reviews. You got to review salespeople quarterly, because if we wait longer than that and we're off track, we're never going to get back on track. And you got to have a sales manager, right? So you need somebody that's focused on training. So there's a guy named Jack Daly. I think you said you might know him.
Yeah, certainly familiar.
And he's a great sales coach, but this happened to me in my company when I was the sales manager and my partner was the CEO. Well, actually I wasn't the sales manager. I was selling for us. There's 3 sins that that CEOs make. So I'd love to share them here because we were making all of them.
Please, send them.
The first one was the CEO was managing the salespeople. We were like, we were doing that because I was selling for us.
Right.
Even though I was an owner, right? And so he was trying to manage the salespeople. And the reality was, you can't be a great CEO and be very strategic if you're also trying to be the sales manager who's a lot more tactical. So, right, that's an issue. The second thing he talked about was your sales manager is selling. Now, there's times when that's absolutely necessary, and we had to do that for a while in our company, where I managed a few people. But eventually, you don't want to create this competition, right? Where I'm doing deals, they're doing deals, they think I'm taking deals, or I'm not, whatever, right? There's all kinds of nonsense that goes into that. I wasn't able to really scale our team and grow and get this breakthrough growth until I fully took on the sales manager role and stopped selling. It was a huge risk for us. I was bringing in about 35% of the revenue.
Wow.
Yeah, a huge risk, right? But once we did that, I was able to start hiring, onboarding, training, right? Full time. And then we were able to sort of have this trajectory of year over year over year growth. And we ended up being on the Inc. 5000 7 years in a row.
Wonderful.
I can attest to, it doesn't matter how good of a salesperson you are, you can't grow the company beyond a certain point, right? There's no more sales I could do in a day. So eventually I had to turn it over to somebody else and just work on building up my people. And the last mistake is they promote the best salesperson to the sales manager. And that's a completely different skill set. Now, I had management background, so I knew how to manage sales teams all the time, but most salespeople don't, and they fail. And so now the business owner has lost their top salesperson, right? And they've put a manager in place who doesn't know what they're doing. So those are lots of different reasons you could be having this revolving door. That's a long answer to your question.
No, but it's the right answer. I mean, there's a lot there. And I think, one of the biggest things that comes to mind is leadership, right? I mean, being able to understand how to effectively lead yourself and then lead your team. And to your point, boots on the ground, folks who are out there knocking it down, hitting the numbers, that skill set, right? The mentality that comes along with that compared to managing a sales team and the check-ins, the training and development, 2 totally different mindsets and skill sets. So, with that, in your opinion, what are the most effective leadership strategies that can be used, especially when you're managing a sales force in a time of crisis and chaos?
Yeah. So, crisis has hit, right? So traditional sales strategies got to adapt. That's critical right now. There's a lot of talent out on the market. So if you're lacking talent, get with a good recruiting firm that's going to go, help you. Again, if you need some help, just let me know. I'll hook you up with somebody. But this is really critical, right? We've got our medium and small businesses are very vulnerable right now. So we've got to identify, how long do we think this crisis is going to last? We've got to implement changes to our sales plan. I mean, if you don't have a sales plan, wow, now's a great time to, create one. That's what I do with clients. So most people that have worked with me prior to this, I would say they're probably doing okay because they've got the tools to do this. We've got to motivate and communicate and refine that plan, as we go. So it's things are changing quick. So let's be over communicating. Let's be coaching our reps. We got to look at, compensation. If you have a sales team, goals are slipping away. We might have to make some adjustments there. You might have to, you definitely should be doing a 13-week forecast, part of that is sales forecasting, but for cash flow, you got to start talking to vendors and suppliers. And I went through this back in, 2008, 9, 10. And
oh yeah. So what it means to go through this level of volatility.
And there's a lot of things you can be doing right now that will help you, get through this.
So that's really helpful. So on the lines of things that can be done right now, what are some actionable items, right? That and small steps, right, that leaders can take right now?
Yeah. So, work with your team, really find out what's going on with them. These are the things. If you don't have a CRM, right, get one. If you don't have a good sales plan, now's the time to do it. Because as soon as the switch goes back on, you're going to be so much more prepared. If you need to rehire, you're going to have the tools that you need to actually do that, right? So do we have goals? I mean, I deal with companies all the time. They don't have goals for salespeople. They don't have the right compensation plan. It's
Right.
like just all kinds of things that we can be fixing right now, so that when you're ready, you're going to do better than you ever did before.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, when we think about cultivating our team, right, and being able to identify folks who are those rock stars and folks who perhaps need a little more help, right, in the training and development of being able to hit the numbers, being able to communicate effectively and push the company mission forward. I know sometimes we have sales folks who don't exemplify, right, what the desired sales behaviors are. Right. And so what do you think are some things, especially in a time like this, so we don't have to deal with that revolving door? What are some things that can be done from a training and development perspective to help folks who may be experiencing that kind of a challenge?
Yeah. So this, goes back to having a sales manager, right? Ideally, somebody that can really understand what those gaps are. Because sales training, formal sales training can be great. But the reality is, we send them off to class and they come back and then nobody's there to like coach and hold them accountable to actually do anything that they learned. So it was great information, but to break habits
Absolutely.
is really hard. So, and training, again, I'm a big fan, but it's not necessarily customized to that individual's needs, right? So we do want to put some self-responsibility on salespeople to go out, especially now. Part of their development, they can watch videos, podcasts, read books, and really understand what their strengths and development needs are and work on those things. But you got to have a coach, right, that's going to help them to get through that. So I recommend, and everybody hates me when I say this, but I really love role plays, okay?
Yeah.
You got to coach your reps. And think about this. If you've been operating I don't want to say old school, but old way, right, where I had face-to-face meetings, and that's gone now. They've never done video calls. Like, you should role play that with them, right? Just to even make sure their head's in the screen.
Absolutely.
Good lighting. And, a lot of millennials, this is not a slight on them, but they're more using technology, chats and emails. Well, nobody wants another email right now, right? So we've got to encourage them to get on the phone, but we don't want to just let them loose on that if they've never done phone sales, right? So role play, practice, give them some of the tools and confidence, because again, that's a new habit. They may not want to jump on the phone and be super nervous about it. We got to coach them through that.
You are singing our language right now. Let me just tell you, we for us, the CEO effectiveness, it's amazing because, when we talk about confidence, when we talk about being able to have the right tools to deal with unknown variables, listen, if you've never been exposed to it in the first place, having to do those real-time pivots and having to adapt on the fly, and it's in a context and environment you've never done before, you're not setting yourself up for success, right? And so obviously, if it's your company, you want every single one of your team members to be successful. So I love what you said there, and change, right? And being able to work poor habits out, or perhaps undesirable behaviors. It's the consistency factor, right? And being able to have those consistent touch points, small baby steps to eventually get to that big change. So that's wonderful. So, we're coming up to our close, but I do have another question for you. So in a time like what we're experiencing right now, how do you feel a business can increase its value, right? Especially with the uphill battle that so many businesses are facing. We do see some companies who are thriving right now, right? Depending on the industry they're in. But then we have a vast majority of companies who are taking a hurting right now. So what would you recommend as far as being able to exponentiate value in the current battle that we're in?
So, most companies have inefficiencies in their sales processes.
Mhm.
Most of us could do better. So now's the time to kind of position yourself for recovery. So, implement those missing pieces of your plan so that, your stakeholders, your employees, your suppliers, your customers, everybody's viewing you as a leader in your field. And so make the investment right now, right? And then you'll be ready to hire and train and grow, scale your company. So again, it's sort of those fundamental things that we need to have: sales goals, the right comp plan, documented, clear sales process, how we take somebody from introduction all the way through to close, sales activity goals, how many calls, how many emails, how many demos do we need to be doing, a CRM, right, that has everything in it that we need to see our customers and our prospects, and create a pipeline and get those key performance indicators, and then those weekly sales meetings. So those are all the things. If you're not doing those, start working on those. But the biggest thing that you can do for your sales team, in my opinion, is to take fear off the table. I mean, we want to lead our sales teams away from sort of this internal dialogue of worry and fear, and we got to focus them outward on the customer. So don't underestimate sort of the power of having purpose, right? And there's a lot with Start With Why and all these, a lot of great purpose books and people out there, because that'll keep the team focused on helping the customer and driving revenue that makes them proud. And that sort of becomes your purpose, is sort of your North Star when you're making those tough decisions. So if we want to increase value as leaders, we got to maintain that positivity. We got to have a solid sales strategy and starve out that fear and give our team that direction, that hope to stay productive, move forward, make that next sales call.
I love that. Well, what an incredible response. When we think about what drives people to do what they do, what drives people to be at their best, it's having alignment, right, with their own personal purpose, which should align, right, with the mission and the purpose of the company that they serve. So I think that is so important, especially when we're talking about motivation, inspiration, resiliency, right? Being able to continue, right? How many no's does it take until you get a yes, right? And so being able to break that barrier, and then you start to slowly but surely see those sales numbers increase. So I think that is incredibly fantastic. So, all right, Kelly, I got to ask, right? What's the best way for folks who are tuning in to get a hold of you?
Oh, they can call or email me. I'm happy to do a free consultation. I mean, I talked about a lot of things today. If something jumped out as a question, please call me. I feel like, my purpose right now is just to impart wisdom, right? Like just help people with what they're struggling with, get them going in a direction that they feel good about. So call or email me. I'm happy to set up a meeting on my website. If you search Kelly Crandall and Sales Acceleration, which is spelled with an X, you can kind of see it behind me. You'll find my webpage, and you can actually book a meeting with me right there as well, if that's easier for you.
That's outstanding. And ladies and gentlemen, as we mentioned in the beginning, if you take a look at the webinar chat, you will see Kelly's email address posted there. So by all means, open up your inbox right now, send her a message with your questions. So to wrap it up, right? So some main takeaway points, right? And so first and foremost, you have to have a plan, right? I mean, having a plan is really important, right? Making sure that you're having the appropriate training and development opportunities, right, for your staff, but more importantly, be able to make sure they have the right tools to be successful in that training and development process. So having a CRM, right? How important having a CRM is, being adaptable, right? Be adaptable, be fluid, be able to fluctuate with the ebb and flow of what's happening in this chaotic time. And then also making sure that internally you have got a distinction between your salespeople, your sales culture, and the sales manager who's leading that charge, because they are two different skill sets. One team, two different skill sets, right? So that's really, really important. And then pushing that forward when you're dealing with, perhaps sales behaviors that are not the most desirable, right? Baby steps to change, right? A very clear plan of how you are going to change and work with your individual team members to push through and break any barriers that may be holding them back. So am I missing anything there?
The only other thing I forgot to mention, which is kind of funny, what I do is I go in with a lot of companies, and I'm a fractional sales manager. So those that are like, I can't do this, it's not for me, I don't want to do it, I don't have time to do it, you can hire somebody like me, or all over the country that can come in on just a part-time basis and fill in that sales manager role for you and put in all this infrastructure into place so that you don't have to do it. So not a typical sales consultant, right? Somebody that's actually going to go in there and do it for you. So yeah, good that I mentioned that in case anybody needs it.
No, that's super helpful to know. And look, and Kelly's being humble. You want to hire Kelly. All right, we're just going to put that out there. She is fantastic. So we're at 9:30. We're going to wrap it up, being mindful of everyone's time. Kelly, thank you so much. An incredible conversation, incredible wisdom and insight. Stay safe and stay healthy in these tumultuous times.